Check out what the UPS dude dropped off for me earlier this week. About 20 feet of 15 by 15 millimeter Misumi aluminum extrusion. Combined with our 3D printed parts, this is going to make the frame and structure of our own 3D printer. Before we put that together though, we need to get our saw set up to make some nice perfect cuts, and then slice these into the 600mm and 240mm chunks that are going to be required for the frame. The first thing I like to do is make sure that the blade is square with the back fence, so that everything you cut has a nice square edge on it here. To do that, I'll usually use my bigger square here, and then just check it against the back of the fence to make sure that it's level. And you'll want to do this on the other side as well. If it is off, what you'll have to do is loosen up the adjustment screws in the back, and then some saws like this one, there's a little hole here where you can throw a hex key in there, and there's like a tiny little grub screw that you probably can't see that'll push up against this bolt, so that if you ever remove the fence or have to move it, you know, side to side for some reason, you can easily get it back in adjustment without going through too much trouble. The next measurement we need to take is against the bed and the blade itself. There is a bit of a lip here, and we can't fully get this in because of the guard. So what I typically like to do is just throw this square down against the blade like this. And we'll take this off here. And then you can just use this piece up against the blade and check. Then next I like to check the blade at a 45-degree angle just to see if anything is horribly off. We won't be doing any angled cuts on this build, but it doesn't hurt. So for that, again, this is a 45-degree here, so we'll use this tool. And we don't need any fancy business since the shielding doesn't get in our way. Might be kind of hard to see there, but that looks dead on too. So if this is off, and this is going to depend on your saw too, but like on this one, it's pretty simplistic. You just have the pointer here and then your scale. For this one, you actually just change the pointer. You loosen that screw and then move it until it's correct again. And then for the zero adjustment, I've just got this little screw here that I back out or push in, and then that hits the actual arm itself and then stops it at the zero position. So we're good here, so we don't have to mess with any of this. I'll just pull it back into position, and we'll see what we do next. Now that we have it adjusted, we're going to make sure to actually cut square. So to do that, we're going to take 2 scrap pieces of lumber that are a decent width. These are just some 2x4 scraps. Make sure they bridge both sides of the fence, and then I'm going to make a cut right through the middle, and then we'll match the 2 pieces up to see if they actually have any gaps and that they're square to each other. So there's the 2x4s we just test cut. And I should mention 2x4s are probably not ideal for this. You want to use some nice finish lumber instead. But for demonstration purposes, this works fine. So on first glance, if you just put them side by side like this, it looks pretty good. We've got a nice even edge on both sides. But what happens if we take this and flip it around? Ah, snap! You do get a small gap there. See that if I tilt this block up here, and if we were to take a square to it, you see the same story. You can see the light shining through there. So the saw measures square but isn't cutting square, so we'll make some minor adjustments and do a second test and see what we get. And here we are after cut. Now again, this 2x4 is a really poor example because it's actually not flat on the bottom. I'll kind of fake it so you can see how it's supposed to look. So nice and straight once again. And it really shouldn't matter which way we flip these or flop them. Should be about the same. There's a little bit of screwiness up here because of the way the blade bites on these 2x4s, but I think we're set, and the machinist square says it's perfect as well. What I'll do now is swap out the plywood blade here for a proper metal cutting disc, and we'll start chopping up some aluminum. Our metal blade is installed and ready to go, so we just got to adjust our fence and we'll be ready to cut. What I got here is just an extension I built that's square with the bed of the saw, and then it's got this sliding block on it here, and this will give us nice repeatable cuts. When we're cutting the base pieces and the verticals, we want them to be very, very close to each other in measurement, and this is going to help us do that. What it does, we place our ruler square up against a blade, and then we move this to the measurement that we want. So we want 600 millimeters here, so we just move it until the edge is even, and then you lock it down, whoops, with the knob here. Once that's tightened, this isn't going to go anywhere, so we can place our piece up against here and we'll get a consistent measurement between here and blade for every piece we cut, which is good because I've got 9 of the base pieces and 3 verticals to cut. So let's load those up and start slicing. So there are all our pieces cut and ready for assembly. They turned out pretty well, all within 0.2 millimeters of each other, and nice and square at the ends, which is exactly what we needed. In the future, I probably wouldn't use that metal blade again on this type of aluminum just because it brutalized it pretty badly. That was way overkill for this stuff and just meant I had to file the heck out of it. But yeah, that's all done. Next thing I'll move on to is getting the diagonal arms done, and I'll get an update when those are glued and put together.